You know, back a few years ago in Dallas, I was doing business with a guy, and he had this sign on his office wall that really impressed me. And it said this: "When I die, I want to die like my grandfather did, peacefully in his sleep, not like the other passengers in his car screaming their head off." And he attributed that to he saw it on a bathroom wall in a hamburger joint in Van, Texas. I read later that a comedian in Texas had actually written that. Didn't say where he wrote it. Might have written it on that bathroom wall. But that's where he claimed it was. And that, upon reading that, I hadn't given death a whole lot of thought. I mean, I knew it's a certainty of life, and we're all going to die. There's no getting out of it. That's the end result of it. So I thought that was just nothing else would come after that. But that made me start reflecting upon death. Shortly thereafter, my father died. And he died while he was just simply walking through the house. That particular day, he had been at the doctor nearly all day getting a physical. They'd sent him home telling him he was in perfect health. He was in great shape. That evening, he got up to get a glass of water to sit down to watch the news, and before he made it back to his chair, he dropped dead. Now, it also happened to be his 73rd birthday. My 73rd birthday is coming up January 5th, so y'all might want to check on me January the 6th. Just to make sure I'm still around. Hopefully I will be. But that made me again reflect more upon death and thinking about how will the time come, what will happen, how will my own death be. Well, on February the 8th, 2011, I found out. It was not on my to-do list that day to die 4 times and have a massive heart attack. I was a very busy guy, I had a lot going on. But I did. I died that day 4 times. I started out that the day before, actually, I blacked out. Next morning, called the doctor's office, and he said, come in today. I had a cardiologist appointment in 3 weeks, the first time I'd ever been to a cardiologist, but I had all the signs. I was not breathing well, I was traveling a lot and trying to get through airports, I could hardly make it. So all the red flags were there, and I, like any man, I ignored them all, thinking they were just going to go away. And that particular day, they didn't go away. I delayed going to the hospital, to the doctor. He finally called himself. I knew the guy, he'd been my neighbor. We were friends, and he suggested I get a part of my anatomy up there to the hospital as quickly as possible. But I went, I took my whole body up there, and I got in not wanting to be there. It just was, I was so aggravated. Got on the treadmill to do a stress test. And as I started, it just seemed to get harder and harder and harder with each step. I knew the technician. He said, look, we got to get your heart rate to 135 and hold it there a little while to get an accurate reading. So I started watching that monitor. But I honestly felt like I was sinking in quicksand. Those of us who have watched old Western movies, we know what that's like. We've all seen the quicksand where the guys get trapped and just start sinking. And that's what I felt like. Finally, the technician said, okay, I've got it. As soon as he said that, I went out. I came to a few moments later, lying on the table in that same room with Dr. Isaac working on me, nurses working on me. Everybody was in frantic stat mode working on me. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? Then I hear him say things like, we're losing him fast. His blood pressure is 60/40. Get a nitro under his tongue. When it dissolves, put another one. Put an IV in, squeeze the bag. When it's empty, put another one in. I'm calling the hospital to get the operating room ready. Now, I don't really remember this, but he said, I grabbed his arm and said, Mike, I don't have time for this. I got to travel tomorrow. I'm not real sure what he told me, but I'm sure it was something about, no, you're not traveling anywhere tomorrow. You're going over here to the hospital. Then I heard him say, we've got to call an ambulance to keep him calm, to get him stabilized, just to get to the hospital. Well, the hospital was a 2-lane street from his office, like a residential street, not a major highway. And they want an ambulance to get me over there to keep me stable? I thought, this is crazy. What's going on here? So I started fighting. I was fighting, stressed and resisting everything they were doing. I just wanted to get the heck out of there and go on with life. I had no idea the seriousness of it. Finally, I think it dawned on me, and I just laid there and I said a prayer, and I said, God, if it's my time to go, I accept that. Prior to that, I was thinking thoughts like, geez, I gotta call my kids. I gotta call the people that I'm working with and let them know I can't be down there tomorrow because I'm dead, I'm dying, I can't make this trip. I had all these crazy thoughts, and I started remembering a dream that I used to have as a kid. It was a reoccurring dream that I got to the point of death and I was dying and knew it, and I was just thinking of all the undone things that I needed to do. I was pretty good about that in life, the undone things that you needed to do. The first book I wanted to write was Procrastination. I'll do it tomorrow. So I never got around to it, but I just was fighting up until that point when I finally just let go and said, okay, I accept the inevitable of what's happening. At that point, they were able to stabilize me. They put me in a wheelchair. It was February. It was cold in North Texas. They put me in with no shirt on. Somebody ran with that wheelchair and somebody running beside it with an IV. Now, if you ever saw the movie, As Good as It Gets, when he burst through or he came out into that lobby of the psychologist and all these people are sitting around, he said, what if this is as good as it gets? And the look on everybody's face was just priceless. Well, when you're rushed out of a cardiologist's back room in a wheelchair with no shirt on, an IV in your arm, looking like death, that was the same look everybody in that waiting room had on their face. I'm sure some of them just got up and left, so I'm not going back there now, no way. But they ran me across the street, and it was like in the movie. Every door we got to in the hospital was open. There was no slowing down. It was like being on a freeway driving 100 miles an hour, all the lights are green. So they got me into the prep room. Now what they were going to do was a heart cath. So I get into the prep room, and I'm conscious enough to know, I hear them say, we're going to go in through your groin. So they had to do some shaking. And obviously, I was making jokes about the shaking because I remember a nurse grabbed my head, looked me directly in the face and said, Mr. Owen, you are in the midst of a serious heart attack. Do you understand? Well, I kind of did because I felt like an elephant was standing on my chest. So I pretty much understood something bad was happening. Again, I calmed down. They got me into the cath room. They said, now you'll see the screen, you'll see everything that's going on. The minute I heard the doctor say, we're beginning, I was out. And I started seeing this swirling, chocolatey look. And there was an occasional flash of white light. So I'm thinking already, I'm a dead man. I'm gone. But wait a minute. People say you're supposed to see a bright white light. I'm going to hell. I'm seeing darkness. Is there any way I can back up and do this again? Suddenly I'm whacked. I'm awake. I'm laying there in the cath lab. People are walking away from me. And I'm trying to figure out, where are they going? What's happening here? Well, they were using the defibrillators. They were shocking me back. As soon as they walked away, and I was going to ask, am I supposed to be awake or asleep? Out I went again. I'm back in this tunnel. I progressed further through the tunnel, and I'm beginning to see that white light. That gave me a little more comfort. I felt like, okay, we've changed direction. I'm going towards the light now. This is a good thing. Just as I got to the edge of that light, I'm back again. I'm back in that hospital room, or operating room. And again, they're walking away. I found out later that they had to use the defibrillator so much that they just used a pair that they suctioned on me finally, so you could just hit a button, keep shocking me. I had burns all over me a couple of days later when I could see that. Third time, I go out again. I'm through the tunnel, I'm standing on a cliff, overlooking the most beautiful river scene that you can imagine. It was the fall of the year, my favorite time of the year. And the vibrant colors, there are not words to describe. You just cannot describe how beautiful the scene was. I'm looking down into the river. It's crystal clear. The rocks in there are shining like diamonds. I can see the trout swimming around. I can see their eyes. Off to my left was a field. There were some cattle. There was the mountain. The road came off of the mountain, crossed over this river, across a steel arch bridge that had the wooden timbers on it. When it got to the other side, they could either go up the mountain or down the edge of the river. And on On the edge of that river was a stone wall. So I'm just taking all this in. Suddenly I see a truck. It was like a 1950s truck, came off of the mountain, went across this bridge, and you could hear the rumbling of the timbers. And my eyes are following, and as I get to the other side, I see this bright white light. And a voice comes to me and says, "Fall forward and drift to me." My first thought is, wait a minute. I can't fall forward. I'll fall into the river. I can't do this. All of a sudden, I'm back in my body again. They're working on me some more. The fourth time that I die, and I get back up on that cliff, and again the command comes, "Fall forward and come to me." And I did. And I flew just like a bird, just like floating down, just calmly going towards this white light. The only strange thing of it, I remember these thorn bushes as I was getting there, and I thought, this is going to hurt. But I went right through them, and sitting on this wall was a personage. Long white hair, long white beard, dressed all in white, and a white glow all around him. And he called me by full name. He said, "James Lee Owen Jr., come sit on this wall, let's talk." So I sat down. For some reason I knew it was not God, but I knew it was a very godly person. So I sat, and the first thing we do is go through a life review. He was very stern, but loving. And he pointed out things that I had done that had been disappointments to others and disappointments to God. He then gave me a complete description of what life was going to be back. I wasn't given a choice, do you want to go back or stay? I was told I was coming back because I had work to do. So instruction was given on what work was to be done. It was very thorough, it was very serious, and when it was over, I was suddenly back in my body. At this point, I'm wheeled into a recovery room, and I'm lying there thinking, was this real or was this a dream? If it was a dream, that was the most serious, in-depth conversation I've ever had in a dream. The doctor came into my room, Dr. Isaac, and he said, "Jim, the good news is you're alive. The bad news is you died 4 times. He later told me that 4th time his staff had started packing up. They thought I was dead and gone. They were quitting. And he said it was just as if someone came up to his side and whispered in his ear, 'Keep working, he's coming back.'" So he kept working, and he told them to keep working. And he said they looked at him like he'd lost his mind. But suddenly there I was back. I'm lying there in the room, and he said, he's a good Christian man. He said, "I want you to come talk to me, not tomorrow, not the next day, but after you've had time to reflect on this, I want to hear your whole story." I laid there in confusion, and that confusion continued because my mind had been sealed. I think it's just like when we come here as babies, we have the entire universe in our brain. We know everything, but we can't talk it. We can't tell it. You know, you see little babies and they look at you like they want to tell you something, but they can't talk. They know. And by the time they can talk, they can't remember. So they're frustrated when they start out. But I kept exploring, how am I going to find out? How's this going to come? Well, the first revelation that came to me was, you will know when the time is right and you are ready for it. You have all this knowledge, it will be released as the time is right. I got it in my head, if I could find that river, that exact spot that had to look exact, then my messenger from God would come back and we could continue this conversation. So first thing I did was explore on Google. I had a friend back in my home state of West Virginia who is a nature photography, and I called him, told him what I was looking for. He would send me pictures. I'd say, nope, that's close, but not quite it. So I finally decided, look, I'll get on this motorcycle all by myself at 68 years old, and I'm just going to ride. I'm going to Southwest Virginia, I'm going to West Virginia, my home area, I'm going to North Carolina, I'm going to Tennessee, I'm going to find that river. Well, the first thing that happened, just a few days into my trip, I'm crossing this mountain and my brakes went out. But there was a perfect spot to pull over, and I did, and I meditated. And I was told that river is not on earth. It's not for you to find on earth. But continue your journey because you'll get answers. Well, the first answers I got came to me one night. I was in a hotel room somewhere, by myself on this trip. And a man came, the same person I sat on the river with. And he said, you need to know who I am. My name is Enoch. When the time is right, you will study about me, and you will learn about me, and you will know why I came to give you a message. Well, I kind of put that off a little bit, because I guess the time wasn't right. Then finally I started studying about Enoch. He was a pretty serious guy. At the age of 365, he was translated into heaven, and he became kind of the right hand of God. And he was shown and given insight to what's going to happen to all of us. He was shown the end times. The Latter-day Saint Church here in this city preaches that Enoch is going to establish the city of Zion for the second coming. So he's a pretty important dude. And I don't know if that day, since he's going to rebuild this city, if God said, Enoch, we got a guy just died, he's a real estate guy, you go talk to him. You can recruit him on your team, so when you're rebuilding the city, you got a real estate guy to go with you. I'm not real sure. But I do know that he taught me love. And he taught me that that's one of the most valuable things that we can possess. But he also taught me to spread that love, but don't sell the sword, because there's chaotic times coming. And that I had an important job to do as the whole world goes into chaos. And I think we see that we're headed that way pretty quickly, day by day. So I don't know what that job is, but I do know one thing. He gave me some insights that, just like with David, he told me about people who were going to pass away. He told me about certain events that were going to happen. He told me one night that in 2 weeks, the love of my life that I hadn't talked to or knew anything about her whereabouts for 40 years was going to call me. And you know what? In 2 weeks, she called. We became the best friends to each other during some very turbulent times that we were going through. She became a widow. I became a widower within 10 days of each other. We have events that we know God put us together so that we could go spread our love. She's sitting right back here today. Beautiful little blonde you'll see me with. We got reunited, and as we go around through our daily life, we've had people stop and tell us that our love just is a glow. It shines. One lady stopped us on our morning walk and said, you have given me new hope for love. So we know our God job is to spread love and to make people feel better about themselves. We also know there's a higher purpose. There's more to come. All this is detailed in my book, In Search of a River, which is available in the bookstore. I've been told to tell you that as soon as this is over, we'll be going to the bookstore to sign books. For any of you who'd like to come purchase a copy, I hope you will, because we don't want to have to carry them all back to Tampa, Florida. But it's got great reviews, so I think you'll really enjoy it. I have just barely touched the highlights of what's discussed in this book. So I hope you do come and buy a copy, read it, enjoy it, get something from it. Thank you very much.